Okay, welcome to episode 10 on what makes a good teacher. I'm your host Emily and I'm here today with
Sofia, today a guest.
Peter, a normal guest.
And Michael, I'm also a guest.
Okay, so to start the podcast with a pretty predictable question on what makes a good teacher, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think of a great teacher?
I think someone that's nice and treats their students with respect, like not that they have, because sometimes teachers treat students like they have way more power over them, and I feel like a teacher that just sees you as an equal, but also is like really helpful and just you can tell that they're passionate about what they're doing. I think those are kind of qualities of a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in my opinion, it's more about how they teach the subject and not really treat the students, or that is also important, but you know, if they can make the subject seem more interesting than it maybe is. So like, for example, math is a fairly interesting subject in this regard. Many people don't like it not because, I don't like it because I'm somehow born with the inability to understand math, but just they have never seen an interesting part of math. They have always seen just, kids, hello, you're gonna do this and this question, I'm just gonna sit here, good job, try something, whatever. And a lot of people really are introduced into maths that way, and they don't really see and feel that it's something that they want to learn. And you know, in learning, it's quite important to not be forced to learn something as much as they make you be interested in it. So you just make yourself want to teach yourself a subject.
I can very much agree with the maths example because until like year 10, I think in primary school I liked maths because, you know, I was like, I've always been quite good at maths. So I was in primary school, I'd go with a special group that would like go outside the class and do like some harder maths. And I quite liked that. But then when it came to secondary school, my maths teachers, most of them were really bad. And I just didn't enjoy the subject anymore. Even though I was still good at it, I just didn't enjoy it. And then I didn't even want to pick it for A-levels. But then I had some really good teachers in this school who made me like it again. And now I'm doing maths A-level and further maths A-level, and I'm going to study maths at uni. So they're doing something right.
Yeah. I'd say also it's important for a teacher to be very empathetic with each and every student, because you can teach a subject broadly, but you also have to find the times when you have to be specific for certain students, like when teachers know that you might need some extra help and they might understand the way you think, then that's really good quality, because then the teacher can also help and explain certain topics in a certain way, which is beneficial to different students. So.
But how important do you think it is? Like, how much of a difference does a teacher make on the subject? So like you were saying, you really liked maths and then you didn't because of the teachers. Mm-hmm. Do you think like that's like, if a teacher is bad, then it ruins the whole subject for you?
Definitely. Because I had this teacher that I really, really hated, and then I just didn't want to go to maths lessons at all because of her.
Yeah, I had the same thing. Like, it was, even though I loved the subject, just in spite of the teacher, I didn't want to go.
It was a similar issue when like I was deciding my GCSEs. You weren't sure which subjects you wanted to take, and you could choose to do the Geografía and Historia to get the SO. And then I did do it in the end, but I wasn't very sure about it because I wasn't good at the subject, and it was difficult to learn with the teachers because as a non-native person. But then I didn't choose something else in spite of the teacher. I did end up doing the SO certificate because it was important to do what I wanted or needed.
You know, for me, it's not as much as if I like the teacher or not, because, you know, as much as I have certain feelings towards certain teachers in my life that have been and are maybe still there, but most have been in Poland. So a lot of them weren't really that good because education in Poland is kind of not that great. The teachers are underpaid, and most of them are at the age where they should have retired 10 years ago, but they can't really retire, so they're just going to stick around and make your life a living hell. But you know, it really depends on what you really want to do in life, as much as it depends on how much you like the subject. Because, for example, I am not an eagle in maths. I am not good at maths. I am terrible at maths. I have certain feelings towards math that could border on me hating it. But, you know, we have to live with it because I want to study ICT, and, you know, you have to kind of know maths. So it's pretty much just comes to me that you have to power through it, even if you don't really like the subject, if you feel that it's going to be necessary in your future. So, you know, you may hate the 2 years and the teacher may be terrible, but, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Okay. And when it comes to teachers, what's more important to you? A teacher who's like passionate about their subject and clearly like loves the subject and like makes the lessons more fun, or someone who like really knows what they're talking about and is more knowledgeable?
Well, I'd say the best way to answer that is a mix of the two, but if I had to choose one, I'd probably say the first one, because let's just say that we are in the age where pretty much education isn't really tied to a single place. We don't need a teacher to learn, and at home we can't learn at all, and we can only revise what we've done in school. We have new tools like AI, like ChatGPT, which allow us to get our stuff explained to us by said artificial intelligence. So, as much as I would say that a teacher should know what they're talking about and, should be able to explain it very clearly, I would rather have someone who can make those 8 hours a day interesting, and someone who can really put me in the feeling that I want to study this. This is what I come here to do. And, as much as I maybe won't learn as much with that teacher as with the other teacher, I believe that I can make that up at home and still enjoy that time in school as much as I would enjoy spending that time at home playing video games or whatever. So, it really just balances out at this point.
I do agree. Having a passionate teacher, in my opinion, is even more important, because I feel like if you're passionate about a subject, you're going to understand it well anyway. And we, for example, my math teacher that I have is very passionate about the subject and likes to show us very interesting things that they see in, for example, our further maths lessons, and then where it's an easier way to understand. It's still related to the course, but then it helps us to understand the topic better because we see it in a more fun way than just the material that we're looking at. And then that doesn't just teach us what we know in school, we also get this broader opinion. So I do think like having a passionate teacher helps you to enjoy the subject, and then you learn new things and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool, than just understanding, okay, so that's a fact and that's it.
I think a passionate teacher definitely makes it more fun and more enjoyable to go into the lessons. But I also really like having a knowledgeable teacher, because like, for example, in history, I really like just knowing all sorts of like random facts. And like a lot of the time in lesson we're like reading the textbook, and then I just quickly Google something like small that's like not really relevant to the course, but I just think it's fun to know. Or but like in history as well, I can just ask Mr. Wright, because he knows like a lot of stuff about history, and you can tell he like knows a lot. So I always ask him like most random questions, like about the kind of weapons they use in the Civil War and stuff that's not relevant to the course at all, but I find it really interesting, and he always has a perfect answer for me.
I'd actually agree with you that I would prefer having knowledgeable, because sometimes passionate, like I've had teachers that are clearly very passionate in the subject, but like more towards the curriculum, and they like kind of ramble and I don't really understand and I get a bit like lost.
Yeah,
whereas if they're more knowledgeable, they're more like straightforward, and even though their lessons may be like more, I guess, boring you could say, but it's only like 50 minutes and at least I'm like retaining information, and then I don't have to do as much at home, which I would much rather do.
Yeah.
And then another one is, has a teacher ever inspired you to go on and do something outside of the classroom? And if so, what and how?
Well, 100%, most definitely. We learned some things in school, like if you do further maths A level, we were learning about these different methods and these different techniques you can use to understand different graphs, and it was very interesting, and I ended up searching more of that because I found that to be a really cool method, and I ended up finding some actual artistic patterns related to the maths. And it was just really fun to see how I could link this part of maths with something completely different, and I think that I definitely did that because I enjoyed the way that it was presented to me by my teacher, and it was very interesting to see how they explained it to me and presented it so that I could go home and then be able to use the knowledge I've been provided to find out more.
Yeah, that just really depends on. I had a few of these sort of situations, but it was it was better to say this way. It was less the teacher really making me interested in it, as I just already had a certain idea of the subject and wanted to get myself interested. But a great example of a subject that kind of does this as the thing it's supposed to do, is graphics. In graphics, we don't really do as much in class, as we're kind of maybe not told to, but inspired to do stuff outside of class, to go outside, take photos, take different observations of the world around us, and try to understand more than just create. We're trying to, I wouldn't say mimic the world around us, but try to understand what sort of rules and what sort of relationships does stuff have. We're really inspired to try to go outside and really explore and make I don't even know how to say this. Try to use the stuff that we learn in class, use the techniques, and try to explore these techniques outside of class. At home and outside in Malaga and whatever.
Yeah, for me, when we were doing statistics and maths, so we were learning about using statistical methods to look at sports predictions. And if you're an OG podcast listener, then you'll know that I'm a big League of Legends esports fan. If you remember from one of the very first podcasts, so I was thinking of how to use these kinds of methods and applying that to esports. And then I had a whole big thing, and I wrote a lot about it in my personal statement as well. So I think that was really good. Shout out to the teacher. Shout out to Miss Davey.
Did it help a lot? Did you manage to?
I think so. Yeah, my prediction rate is increasing.
Oh,
wow.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
One thing for me is that it's usually, unfortunately, things outside of the curriculum. A teacher will drop something random, that they'll be by the way, and then that's the one thing that I think of and remember, and I'm I'm going to do more research on that, and it's the one thing that they mentioned in the class that has nothing to do with what will come up in exams, but that's the only thing that I remembered.
Exactly.
And then another question is, if you had to teach a subject, it can exist in the A-levels, but maybe we don't teach it in Sunnyview, or you could invent a whole new subject and you could teach it in Sunnyview. What subject would it be, and how would you teach it? What would you be as a teacher?
Well, that is a great question. As much as I would have to think about this, because I'm the sort of person that enjoys really doing physical stuff as much as, for example, woodworking, metalworking. But I don't really think that would be popular. So I'd say that ICT and maybe the technical side of ICT. Maybe not making stuff how to build a computer out of a few pieces of metal and quartz. That's a bit advanced. But for example, how to make cables and stuff, and maybe go more in depth on certain stuff. Maybe introduce a bit of physics into ICT, how exactly do computers work, how do processors work, how exactly are the relationships between different elements. So, I would do that if I could.
Okay.
When I was younger, I really wanted to be an English teacher, but that's not really because of the... that's not really just because of the subject. It's because I like reading. But it's also just because every English teacher I've met, most English teachers I've had, have just been really chill, really nice people. I can't think of an English teacher that I really hated, and I think English teachers are great.
They're always very fun and creative teachers too. You're always just having a blast in the lesson. You'll read through a text, and then a lot of the things that you'll do in class is fun, but it's obviously really linked with the subject too. I sometimes even forget that I'm doing English. I'm just in the class.
Yeah.
Most of my memories that are this funny thing happened are from English, because Mr. McKean, who was a great teacher, those lessons were kind of peak.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
And then because I wanted to answer this question, back to the question of if you had to bring in a subject or teach a new subject that's not in the A-level course, I think I'd want to do textiles. Sewing and really because we did that in my old school too. And then I think I'd want to do that, maybe not as because we did it in year 7 and 8 where it was compulsory as a rotation with food tech and DT, and then that was chaos because there were people that didn't want to do it in there. But I think as a GCSE or an A-level, textiles would be really fun, and you'd learn how to sew and maybe make clothes and things like that, and I think that would be really cool.
I have trauma from textiles because they discriminated against me for being left-handed because they didn't have any working left-handed scissors. There was only one pair of left-handed scissors, and they weren't sharp, and the scissor sharpener was a right-handed scissor sharpener, so you just couldn't cut. So I had to sit in the classroom with the teacher next to me cutting my stuff out. It was so embarrassing. And also I'm just really bad at sewing. My hands are not made for that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what's one thing that a teacher could do that would make you respect them instantly?
That's a good question. I need to think about this.
Yeah, that's something to think about.
Something that, instantly respect them. I mean, I guess if, kind of what I was talking about in the beginning, if they treat you kind of like an equal, not
But that's tricky because then
like,
I would
yeah.
say like, because I don't like
then that
teachers
doesn't-
too much, that like, I don't think it's a good balance of like teachers trying to be your friend.
Yeah, like I think there's like a good balance, but sometimes teachers go overboard and then
Yeah.
they just don't want to teach and instead they just want to
Yeah.
be your friend
And they want to
too
be like the
much.
cool teacher.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like one of the things that teachers definitely related to that is that they like come to the lesson and they look like they're ready and happy to teach you, and then usually like the smile can be contagious. But of course there's also those teachers that are like super energetic and happy in the mornings,
And it's a bit much.
It's too much.
Yeah.
I'm still half asleep. You need to give me a minute to process.
And then sometimes they're so energetic and happy that like the actual learning gets a bit lost in their energy.
I think one thing that would make me respect them is, well, no, this is just a general like feedback for teachers, is that when they don't leave your team's message on delivered for too long.
Yes, I do, yes.
It's like when they reply to you, and then or like when you message them at the end of the day or like on a Friday, and then they're just out of office for the whole weekend. And I understand that obviously you're not going to message them on like the thing, or it'll be like you really need something, and then they won't reply till like 2 days later.
Yeah,
And it's
or
like, oh my God.
or you need something like desperately now, or like in the next day.
Yeah.
And then they won't read it that day, they won't reply. And then like 2 weeks later they read it and just don't say anything.
Yeah, there's an even worse thing when they don't read it, or they just read the pop-up that appears on the screen, and then a day or 2 days later, in school, I saw your message, you know.
Yeah, sorry, message. But yeah.
Okay, what is like, what does a teacher do when you need help, or like you're struggling, that you think is really good, like a method that they can help you, like that is useful?
Sort of just like explaining it again in more detail, but also like helping you understand it. Like they're not just telling you, but they're like helping you like learn it. But they're also teaching it in like telling it to you in like a more general way than like for the specific question. Because sometimes they tell you need to do this for this question, but then I'm like, okay, but what about the next question?
Yeah, and
like,
then it'll come up in like another format, and it's like, okay, but now I don't know how to do it.
Now I'm lost again.
Yes.
So it's, if they teach you like in a general way, like so if you see these kinds of questions, you got to do these steps.
And it's even worse when it's this sort of situation, but the new questions are the homework, because then it's terrible.
Oh yeah.
So you think you're prepared for it because you did the questions in class with the teacher and it made sense, but then you go home and you do the homework and it's a different style and you completely forgot how to do it. But
Okay, and what's one giveaway? So like when a teacher enters the classroom and like within the first 5 minutes of the lesson, they haven't necessarily need to say something, but what's one giveaway that you know they're in a bad mood, like you can feel it? Like how does it show?
They just walk in like really like with a purpose, and then they're like
like they walk in and the aura coming off them.
Yeah,
is
you just
instantly like,
know.
oh no.
they're just like, you can feel like in their footsteps the way they walk.
The way they walk, because I feel like we know our teachers like mannerisms very well now, and then you know like the second like they step in, the way
Like,
they
if
like
they kind of
open the door, the way they put the books on the table, you're like, oh god, this is gonna be like a good mood.
Yeah, like if they slowly walk in, okay, it's a good lesson. But if they like kind of storm in, then you're like, red flags.
exactly, you're sitting there, you have these lessons every day with the teacher, and then there's suddenly this change and you recognize they're in a bad mood. And sometimes the class will just go dead silent right after that, because you'll see
everyone knows.
Everyone just knows. But there's also the times that no one seems to notice except for you.
Yeah.
And then just keep talking, and then they get mad at the whole
Or
class.
like they're asking
they get
stupid
really
questions and you're like, they're clearly not in a good mood, like guys, come on.
You know it's real bad when sarcasm appears. You know, that is that is just hide under the desk, you know, just in the fetal position, just please don't me.
Yeah, and people keep talking and you're like, oh my god. And like even I start to like go into my lecture, but I'm like, oh
I'm just like looking down at my book so they don't look at me.
Yeah, I know. Okay, and then what's something you wish teachers knew about students that would make learning more fun? Like something that they don't really do, or something they do which like everyone hates? I
like working in teams more.
Oh, me
I
too.
feel like pair work and stuff.
Yeah, I like group work and, to be honest, presentations, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I don't mind them.
Yeah, I like them
we
as
don't
well.
do that many like group work tasks in like A level. I don't see it much.
No.
I don't know.
Enrichment was, I think, the last one that we did.
Enrichment, and then I think maybe in some practical work in like physics or chemistry,
Yeah.
but I only do the sciences, and we don't really have many more projects compared to that.
That's annoying.
You know, comparing to year 11, year 10, it's pretty much 0 for me.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think there's less, but I didn't think there was that many in like year 10 either.
No,
like
in year
Sunny
10,
Day.
year 11 for us,
Really?
it was
I
quite a
don't-
lot of projects.
I don't think so, but I really like those maths lessons where we're working in like pairs or threes, and then she gives us like some questions and we're working them out together. Those are like my favorite lessons. And then in history as well, like last year we did some presentations, this year we haven't done any. But I like those group works.
Yeah, I remember the history presentation. I did the history, but I helped them with them. I was sitting with Sam. Oh yeah, this, yeah, 1946. Yeah, no, you got that wrong. Yeah, change that.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Another thing that I do think that teachers about students like that they should know is I feel like a lot of the time we might even go over something, but by the next lesson some students will forget it. So I even make this mistake when I'm like helping with the club is I don't realize that they know everything that I know, and that can be frustrating for them and for me because I'm trying to explain it, but I do realize then that they don't know it. They don't understand these basic things, which I thought that they already knew in order to explain the next topic. So sometimes just like looking at the class and then seeing if there are confused faces from the very start to see if you should go over like the basic things one more time or just recap it.
Because I know even though they're like, oh, if you're ever confused, just ask. But a lot of the times you don't ask.
Yeah,
like you just.
I
just
really
carry
don't
on.
like asking for
Me
help.
neither. And then they like move on very quickly, and then because they've already moved on, I feel bad asking, which I know I
Yeah,
shouldn't.
that's
And they always say like don't, and I know they wouldn't mind if I went up and asked them, but it's a bit like oh god,
Yeah.
like I feel like they're just going to be like that. I should have been listening, but I just didn't understand.
Especially if everyone else in the class gets it,
Yeah.
and then you're the only one who doesn't get it, and you don't want to be like, oh, can you explain that again? And then everyone else is
like,
annoyed
oh.
because I know like when I get it and then someone doesn't get it, I don't mean this in a bad way. Like obviously, if you don't get it and then you need the teacher to explain, like completely respect that. But sometimes it's like
It just feels
annoying
like I'm
having
ready
to
to
wait.
move
Like
on.
I'm ready to move on. Like if it was like the teacher who gave us some questions to do and then she goes and helps you, like that is like I think good. But if it's like now the whole class has to stop to help with one person, it's like annoying for me. But yeah, and then I also don't want to be that person.
yeah.
It's kind of embarrassing. But
Yeah.
you know, I think teachers kind of, you know, I think it's with every job, you know, you see that complacency because, you know, they've been doing the same material for the last 10 years, every day, every Monday, Tuesday, Monday, Friday. And, you know, they kind of forget how hard certain elements can be. And, you know, they already have a set idea. Oh, okay, this is hard, this is easy, this we should use more time, this we should use less time. And, you know, they kind of lose that perspective of seeing something for the first time. And, you know, many students, including me, of course, you know, see a subject and with the teacher thinking, oh yeah, this was easy for me because I already know this because I've been teaching this for 10 years. For me, it's something completely mind-blowing and what am I even looking at, you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes even the book kind of forgets that we are not supposed to know this yet and kind of just like, oh yeah, this is this. 5 lines of text for something that took me 20 hours to understand, for example. You know?
Okay, for me, so the last thing before I move on to the next questions is something that I find like that I don't really like is when they ask a question and then like so many people there have their hands up and you're kind of like looking around because you don't want to answer and then they choose you and it's like I get they want to challenge me but it's just embarrassing like then you just don't know in front of the whole class and you're like I don't know. They could have chosen anyone else.
Like I get if it's one person that has just putting their hand like up the whole lesson and then you want to ask someone else, I can get that. But if there's like a lot, if you've got like choice and you're still picking someone who doesn't have their hands up, then I think just pick someone with their hand up.
But it's like I usually have my hand up and then when I don't then they choose you and it's like okay but this is like the one time I don't know and it's just annoying.
There's the part when you're doing the homework and you didn't understand half of it, so you put your hand up as much as possible to be as obvious as you can so that they pick you on the questions you do know.
That's clever.
And then they
I do
don't
that as
pick
well.
you on the one that you don't know, so then you can hear the explanation and be like, I totally knew that. It's alright.
But then when it comes to marking homework, for me, I find, especially in French, because we do like question by question, it always comes to my turn on the question I know I got wrong. Like I would have gone them all right, and then it would get to the one question I got wrong, and then it would be my turn to like say the answer.
That's terrible.
It is terrible.
You know, the worst part about me for this is the fact that, you know, I've been in Poland, I've used this strategy where, for the first 2-3 weeks of school, you just constantly hand up, try to get the teacher's attention. And, you're vouching for the fact that, the teacher is going to think, this student is very good. I'm not going to ask him that much. But, sometimes that backfires. And, 1 year in my life, it was truly not fun because the teacher really thought that I was that good. And for the 9 months, I was asked every lesson, pretty much every question. And I did not know half of them. So just like, I'm not really feeling too well, miss. Maybe someone else should try, maybe. And it's terrible in Poland because you can actually get a U for like answering a question wrong when the teacher picks it.
Crazy.
What?
So that's pretty much just try to hide under the table at this point.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, so I've got some would you rather questions with some teacher scenarios. So would you rather have a teacher who gives a lot of homework but grades really quickly, or one who gives barely any homework but takes forever to grade?
No, absolutely forever to grade.
We don't like homework.
out of mind, out of heart, But also depends on how much homework there is, because he can give one assignment a week, and it's just just do it for next week maybe, and I'm gonna grade it in 2 weeks. But that assignment has 20 questions, which are all
No, barely any.
Oh, barely any.
Yeah.
I'd say I'd prefer it to be graded for a longer time. You really get to think about your answers. You really get to fear how badly you did.
I feel like my opinion has changed depending on the year I'm in, because in the younger years I would very much not like any homework, and I don't mind if they grade it slowly, but I've reached the point I don't want a lot of homework. That part is not something for me. But then again, to get my results back and get information back quickly at this point in your life is really important. So I'd have to pick that one, even though I would dread the homework. It's too much homework. There's a good amount where it helps you to revise things, and then there's a excessive.
I think for me it depends on the subject, because I think for maths, if I don't mind doing a little bit of maths questions here, just put on some Spotify and just relaxing, whatever. And then if she marks them quickly, that's great. But for history, it's a whole essay, and I've got to think about it, and it's long, and I've got my textbooks, and I've got my sheets, and I've got all my information, and I've got to think about this for a long time, and I'll write a paragraph here, and then I don't want to do it. So for history, definitely the second one, because I don't really like doing history homework. But for maths, I wouldn't mind the first one.
Relaxing math homework.
Yeah,
it's not that bad. It's not that bad.
No, I agree with you, but.
I would say I don't know, because it also depends how stressed I am in general. Because if that's the only thing I have to do, just the one piece of homework every day, then it could become a bit like routine. I just do, it's this subject's homework time. But then if it's I've got this and that, and I've got a test for that subject, then it becomes a lot. But then the grading quickly could be really useful at this point in our life now. So I don't know. Yeah. I feel like I wouldn't want it, but it'd be more beneficial. I'd thank them later. And then the next one is, would you rather have a teacher who lets you choose all your own projects, or someone that assigns you everything?
Is it group work?
Let's say it's presentations on, you get your on your specifications you have a topic overview.
Yeah.
It's do anything in that, or they assign you everything.
But are you working with a group? Because I feel like it also depends if you're with a group. If you're working with a group, then... you're working with a group. Then I'd say maybe we can let the teacher choose, unless we all come to a unanimous decision.
Okay.
If not, then if it's a topic that they pick, then maybe we can use our skills together, and sometimes that might be better. Mm-hmm. But I do like doing my own projects, because then I can help others understand something I'm good at, and they can help me understand something that they understand. And then we get these different opinions.
Definitely what the teacher assigns, because then that's more specific. Because I feel if you've got the whole spec and then they're now do something with it, it's just too broad, and then I don't know what to do, and then maybe I'm not putting in enough information. But if it's something specific, especially because the teacher knows what's difficult and what people are struggling with, so then they'll be okay, you got to do this part of the course that's quite difficult, and then you spend more time on that and you go into detail with it, so then I feel you know it really well. I feel learning when you do a presentation, I just feel I know that part of the course so well.
Yeah, for me it really depends on more the subject, as much as I would say absolutely we would be able to pick, but that really just depends on how much we understand. Because, if we have a subject that, everyone is clearly passionate about and, has an interest in, then of course we would like to pick our subject, because then we can pick something that, we want to do. and that we're more passionate about and most importantly, know more about. But if it's like a subject where we're pretty much either indifferent or just completely green, we don't know what's what, then I'd absolutely prefer the teacher assigning us work, because then at least we've got something to start on and not we'd spend a day just deciding what to do because we don't know anything about these subjects or these topics that we have to do a presentation on.
Yeah, I think I would let them assign me because I'll always choose the thing I know best already.
Yeah,
so then it's probably better if they assign it to me because then I'll just end up not knowing it. Okay, last question. Would you rather have a teacher who gives random pop quizzes quite frequently or one who never gives you like pop quizzes but surprises you occasionally with like a big test?
Random pop quizzes, because I actually love random pop quizzes. They're so fun. That's what I've got to say.
Agreed, because then if you like throw me an exam suddenly,
like a full past paper,
a full past paper with all the course information, I didn't have time to look over it. Like I'll probably forget the things at the very start and only know the things at the end. But if I have pop quizzes, I check my knowledge every now and then. So
then I'd probably be able to find the pattern of the pop quizzes. Every time it's a Monday or every time it's a Tuesday. But I see the appeal of having just a big test at one point because you could absolutely guess that there is a test. Maybe the teacher, of course, depends on who the teacher is. So maybe they'll start hinting at hey, do this, maybe try this past paper. Absolutely do that. But I will have to stick with the random pop quizzes. As much as I would dread just being, it's a great Monday morning, there's nothing better than, it's a business pop quiz. That's great.
Yeah. Okay, I would also choose pop quiz. Yes. But that was the end of the podcast episode. Thank you for coming and see you next week.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.